Hey everybody, it's Funny here once again. Hope you're doing well. So I've been accused of many different things on this short journey here with the Rambling About series. Of being an idiot. True. Of being trans. False. But the most bizarre so far. Of being a Simple Plan fan. What? So the last one was in response to a part in my top loves and hates about Eurorack video, where I mentioned that I thought the community reminded me of the punk rock community, which one commenter was offended by. And this got me thinking, though, is Eurorack punk? Punk was the centerpiece or the entirety of my identity for a very long time. Those ideas shaped my worldview, and it's still my favorite genre of music, I'd say. Is that at odds with Eurorack? That part of the video specifically was talking about the support of the community. The way people who didn't even know me in the slightest opened their metaphorical arms and literal homes offering to invite me in. And to be weird and overly specific, I was kind of thinking about an era around 2012 to like 2014 when I was really into folk punk. Bands like Mischief Brew, Blackbird Rom, Ramshackle Glory, who sort of built dedicated communities around Bandcamp sales and just straight up like touring like nomads, basically, through what they could arrange through the internet, people they could meet online, and which is sort of in the lineage of how bands used to just hit the road and totally nomadic style. Just because you believed in it so much. So I think punk is a genre of music and an ethos. The strictness of either is really up for debate. To some people, it's really strict. To other people, it's really loose. To other people, they don't even feel very strongly about either at all. But undeniably, there are communities out there in the real world and online built around interest in both. To me, the commitment given to volunteering, organizing synth meetups and groups like the Vancouver Modular Society or online communities like the Earth Modular Society is really similar to that. Sure, maybe it's not as huge of a commitment or as idealistic as Fugazi recording albums without heat, or turning down Rolling Stone articles because they run alcohol ads, or something like running a zine or a label in an era where print media was more sought after. But all of these things are a focus on community building out of passion, not out of personal gain. Surely it has some similarities, at least in sentiment, right? Now this commenter went on to delete it all, or maybe it got reported and taken down. YouTube doesn't tell me either way, it just disappears basically. But specifically they took aim at Eurorack as a point of excess, saying that punk was made with the bare essentials, without care for polish, etc. Which again brought me to that question, if Eurorack is punk. I wasn't necessarily trying to say it was, but I am overthinking it now. And the larger question too is, what is punk? I don't necessarily have an answer really. It's so easy to say what punk is not, being performative for aesthetics, leaving regressive comments in YouTube videos to shit on others in your own community, John Lydon, and really caring about being punk or not is not punk itself. Obsession with being punk in itself is a fool's errand and a paradox, but I tried to best define what it meant to me in the Rambling About Mental Health episode, and I'm still really happy with that section. So in that video I said, I really made punk a core of my identity in my formative years without really giving it much thought. I don't know what it means to be punk rock. I gave up on finding a narrow definition of it a long time ago, but I do value the urgency, immediacy, political activism, the community focus, the driven individuals over perfectionism, that ethos that is so vibrant amongst many admirers of its music, and those values can be found in many other areas and artworks that you wouldn't think of as punk. And yes, I'm one of those dorks who talks in front of the camera, so let's explore it. Punk is both a genre of music and a loosely defined set of leftist ideals. First, punk music to me, and it's not mutually exclusive, it doesn't have to have all of these pieces necessarily, but it is about energy, urgency, and ideally message as well. So to me, it doesn't mean you need to sound like Crass or F- to be punk. I might even say Sophie was as punk as any of those acts, to capture the moment in which the music was created. So I would say that perfectionism is not punk, but when I wrote this section originally, I thought to say as well that unpolished is part of punk rock, but there are lots of extremely polished records out there that are just as punk as the rest of them, like the album by Sophie that I just mentioned, or Dead to Me's Cuban Ballerina comes to mind. Polish and punk aren't mutually exclusive in my opinion. It's about making the most out of your time and expressing yourself in a pure way. For Crass, that was running Dial House with an open door policy. For Alice Glass, that was using the platform to call out your abuser. And in saying all of these things that aren't traditionally punk, I am bleeding into the next section, which is the ideology. What makes these things actually punk, I guess? The classic example is just because you kick over a trash can doesn't make you punk. You have to have a reason for it. Smash a bank if you've got real balls, if you will. See, they're sort of one and the same in many ways, and you can make music inside or outside of the genre. Something that isn't necessarily punk rock music can have a very punk rock ethos. And to paraphrase Mother's Basement, in an attempt to hit all of the marketing targets as a checklist, you miss the whole fucking point. and this part relates to my Sophie example before, punk music is about raw expression of the human spirit, not about mohawks and gatekeeping. And I think that's extremely well put, especially given the people to whom punk is about mohawks and gatekeeping will find Jeff extremely unqualified to talk on the subject, but I love that. Now, punk ideologies, it's funny here doing research to see Wikipedia list them so clearly and organized without the endless debate contextualizing it. Wikipedia is definitely punk, by the way. Free knowledge base, open source, reader-funded is punk. But Wikipedia says, quote, punk ideologies are a group of varied social and political beliefs associated with the punk subculture and punk rock. It is primarily concerned with concepts such as mutual aid, against, selling out, hierarchy, white supremacy, authoritarianism, eugenics, class and classism, while supporting anti-consumerism, anti-corporatism, anti-war, anti-imperialism, anti-globalization, anti-gentrification, anti-racism, anti-sexism, gender equality, anti-homophobia, racial equality, animal rights, free thought, and nonconformity. One of its main tenets is the rejection of the mainstream, corporate mass culture and its values. It continues to evolve its ideology as the movement spreads throughout North America from its origins in England and New York and embraces a range of anti-racist and anti-sexist belief systems. Punk does not necessarily lend itself to any particular political ideologies as it is primarily anti-establishment. And to what I said before about the arguing, giving it the context, things that should or shouldn't be in here are kind of hotly contested. Specifically, I think the inclusion there of being against authoritarianism instead of being anarchist speaks to how the ideology moves beyond its cliches and focuses on actual positive change. If you're a libertarian for tax breaks or private health care and you support fascism, then you surely aren't the new punk. Sorry, bring this back on topic here. I don't think Eurorack is at odds with any of those things listed there, till I get to the one about being anti-consumerist, and it's tough. Like, yeah, it's an endless pursuit of new modules. In my How Do You Afford Eurorack video, I mentioned how none of it ends up in a landfill, but I do spend a ton of time and energy and all of my money chasing new things, which, by definition is about as consumerist as you can get. But there is a different side to that coin too, and maybe this is just cope. But supporting small builders, the ones, designing weird circuits in their bedrooms, shipping modules from their kitchen tables, drawing their own panel art, it feels like something worth backing. It feels like a unique and special thing. It's not just buying gear, it's sort of supporting part of the community that we're all a part of. It reminds me of buying records from tiny labels back in the day. And the price line, it's huge, but it supports small manufacturers in a tight-knit community. But having said that too, even in these circles, you do see signs of those same old patterns, the endless cycle of new versions of V2s, limited runs, the hype machine rolls on. It's just smaller and more personable sometimes. But at least it's not supporting the types of labor you see in places like Foxconn to build things that end up in a landfill. These things are pretty timeless, even if they lose a lot of value. No one's throwing out Eurorack modules, right? These are often made by one or two people in their homes even. But yeah, it's still chasing the shiny new toy. Like you need to upgrade just to keep up. And what I struggle with trying to find, whether I agree with it or not, is the narrative that Behringer is pushing now, basically that the low price that they offer removes the barrier to those who can't afford it. And that makes sense too. Surely we would have more excellent artists who were great at Eurorack, who will never touch it because of the price tags, unfortunately, which also includes younger musicians, or people in countries where even being priced in US dollars completely removes them from the equation. And sorry if this is a whole bunch of contrast, but I'm trying to raise these questions to all of us and not just get defensive about it, I guess. But what is really cool, at least where I'm from, is this sort of culture that's kind of spun out of it, of reuse, trading, and sharing. Modules get passed around, traded, loaned, and shared. I've met lots of people who lend me stuff for videos just because they want to help out and they don't, they trust me with hundreds of dollars of gear is not something that happens in the guitar pedal community when I was deep into that at a time. It's not perfect, but there's a lot of great intention behind how you engage with people and how they help me out with all this gear. You can spend a lot, sure, but you don't have to, and some of the most exciting music comes from tiny rigs with real focus, and people doing DIY stuff is super exciting. I really wish I was that talented, and I just bought a soldering rig to take a crack at that eventually. People who open source their stuff, people who make the PCBs available, people who share the schematics with the community and help each other for free, like supporting each other in the discords and stuff. It's all really exciting to see. And I do also make a lot of references to noise lawyers and their memes on this channel. But in all seriousness, you don't need a fancy rig to make something evocative. You don't need Eurorack to play live. I've seen amazing performances with a couple broken pedals and an XLR to a 1/4-inch adapter. So in conclusion, yeah, I was never trying to say Eurorack is inherently punk, and I don't know if it is, but I think the community has tons of aspects that definitely are, even some of the negative sides too, like the infighting at times, like we're talking about right now, or the gatekeeping, like we're talking about right now, and the drama sometimes too. But even if Eurorack itself isn't necessarily punk, the community has that spirit, which is definitely worth defending. And honestly, as we get older too, we don't always have the same chances to play in bands or tour or live nomadically like we once did. We have commitments and things that we need to do, and loved ones that cared about us that we have commitments to. But Eurorack or whatever interest it is, be it model trains or a different creative practice, it gives us an opportunity as we get older to explore ourselves. I read somebody say, I believe it was in the Vancouver Synth Meet group, say that, Eurorack proved to them personally that they could still learn, grow, and surprise themselves in adulthood. And that really stuck with me because, that's what this whole thing is about, right? Not just for making music, but making space for curiosity, for community, for self-discovery. Even when life's supposed to be all figured out, there's still lots of things to discover and lots of fun to be had. So maybe Eurorack isn't punk, but finding joy in creating your own unique systems and unique sounds, and more importantly, connecting with others who get it, and refusing to let your creative fire go out, that aligns with what I believe punk to be. Alright, I'm Tafony. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that crap. The YouTube's always on my case, but not promoting to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Oh, and if you're a Simple Plan fan, I don't mind. It's okay to like stuff.